Thank you, Tom. My name's Trevor. I'm an alcoholic. For most normal folks, drinking means conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination. It means release from care, boredom, and worry. It is joyous intimacy with friends and a feeling that life is good. But not so with us in those last days of heavy drinking. The old pleasures were gone. They were but memories. Never could we recapture the great moments of the past. There was an insistent yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and a heartbreaking obsession that some new miracle of control would enable us to do it. There was always one more attempt and one more failure. The less people tolerated us, the more we withdrew from society, from life itself, as we became subjects of King Alcohol, shivering descendants of his mad realm, the chilling vapor that is loneliness settled in. It thickened, ever becoming blacker. Some of us sought out sordid places, hoping to find understanding, companionship, and approval. Momentarily we did, then would come oblivion, and the awful awakening to face the hideous four horsemen: terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair. Unhappy drinkers who read this page will understand. Alcoholics Anonymous, page 151.
Thanks for reading.
Thanks for reading.
Thanks for the good news.
Go ahead.
And guys, please help me welcome Nikoleta.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Nikoleta. I'm an alcoholic. Thanks so much. Thanks, Todd, for the invitation. I'm so excited about this lineup to speak with my friends. Oh, God, I just hope I speak from the deepest place in me. And the deepest place in you is what hears me. And thanks for the really bad news of that paragraph. Because, all the speakers are like, we're going to share the good news. And, my news is really, really bad news. Step one is really, really, really bad news. I'm here to deliver a death sentence, basically. And I don't know any other way to really speak on step one except in my experience. Because, the mind only can reflect or have an opinion. But the experience of powerlessness has to be felt in the body in a really, really deep way. We have to concede to our innermost selves that we're different from others, that we're bodily and mentally different, right? And that's a journey in itself. And I would say that I practiced step one for 11 years of my drinking. My sober date is September 15, 2006. 19 years on Monday. It just seems like such a large number, and I still feel like really a newcomer. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of the depth of this program and what its invitation is really. But I'm from a family that was impacted by alcoholism. I was warned about alcoholism at a young age. My very first memory is Dad being thrown out of the house, bottles being thrown out of the house, my mom's clog flying on the ceiling, And that little girl with that first memory just tightened up and life's not safe. Life is unpredictable. There's a lot of suffering. That was the first message that I internalized, Does that make me an alcoholic? No. But it did impact the way I related to life and to others. My upbringing and my childhood all added to my sense that I didn't really have an ability to connect with others and to really relate to others. Life was scary, life was overwhelming, life was confusing. I couldn't really be transparent or vulnerable. So it started an inner dialogue, really. And the book really talks about that in step one. I mean, we are impacted physically because of the phenomenon of craving, the allergy of the body. That happens once we put alcohol in our body. We're impacted mentally because of the mental obsession and the mental blank spot that occurs, which I'll talk about, because for me, the mental obsession is really all about control and reliance on the mind. I can do something about it. And we're impacted spiritually because we're disconnected from the depth of our being. We're really not connected to that place inside of us that connects us to everything else. Yeah. And so I was curious about booze because Dad drank. And it impacted the family dynamic. I really was. I would watch him. I would have an effect produced by alcohol, watching my dad have an effect produced by alcohol, because I would see him be different. I would see him get restless and impatient when mom didn't let him drink, or when he was like, kept from him. And I would see him be more joyous and want to play with me and spend time with me or give me some attention when he would start drinking. It was like he would relax, the shoulders would drop, and I was curious about that. And then I was warned about booze, not just because of my dad, because they said I was just like my grandmother, and she died with a bottle in her hand when she was 50 years old. Highest military officer in the Yugoslavian army at that time. Generals used to come and were intimidated by her. And, so whether it's genetic, whether I take it from the family, I really don't know. None of that matters. Here's my experience. I came as an illegal immigrant to New York City when I was 14 years old, and we went through some hardships and challenges. And I said, okay, well, there was eventually like academic and financial success because of hard work. And what that translated for me is that if I really relied on my mind heavily, I would get the answers to how to live life. And so I pushed harder. I wrestled satisfaction out of life to the best of my ability, right? I efforted a lot. I relied on my mind heavily. And when I was 16, I started living alone in New York City. My mom moved to Chicago. My sister moved to Queens. And so here's a 16-year-old girl with 3 jobs. I already graduated high school, valedictorian. I already got accepted into 30 colleges. I'm only sharing this because there was a sense of I had arrived. I relate to Bill's story when it says, I had arrived. I can succeed. Look, I'm doing good. I have achievements. And that was the sense that I had. I went from living in abandoned buildings and cleaning apartments and hair salons and looking for furniture on the street so that I can do homework on it, and squatting with strangers, to being successful, so to speak, in a sense, and receiving a lot of praise for it, like you're doing good, you're great. And that made me feel like I can tackle anything. So at 16, one of the jobs I had, I was working in a restaurant, and the curiosity about booze was so prevalent for me. And I think that was a way that I wanted to connect with my father more, also, to understand him more, and to understand my childhood more. So I got my hands on a bottle of gin and I brought it home. And it was love at first gulp. I discovered booze, right? It already treated the emotional climate that was already present in me. It treated the internal condition. That was my medicine. It was my solution. What did I experience? I took that gulp from the bottle. So off the bat, my drinking was not normal. Like it wasn't like with friends from a glass with some ice. No, I took a gulp from a bottle, of gin, And I don't remember the rest of that night. Off the bat, my relationship with booze was not normal. It was not healthy. But what happened is that I could exhale. The wheels of my mind stopped spinning. There was a shift in perspective, in perception. It treated like me internally and the way that I related to life off the bat. And there was a conscious decision, I want to do this more and I want to do this again and I need this, and I've discovered something that really improves my life. And that's where the dance, the love affair started. My longest relationship. Most committed relationship, most loyal relationship. It became a priority. And the truth is, the next 11 years, it's mushy. I can't stand here and tell you, this night this happened, because, there was a lot of it just as it comes to me, I would come to with a stranger. I would come to on the floor. I would not know why I got thrown out of the bar. I would not know how the glasses from the bar ended up in my house. I would come into the bathroom and see bottles in my bathtub. I would come to and see bruises all over me, living alone. Do you remember the bruises? Was anybody getting bruised when they were drunk? I was a bruise magnet. I mean, I had bruises everywhere. You would think somebody was beating me. I wasn't even in a relationship most of the time of my drinking. It was unbelievable. This is what step one really wants to drive home. It's like what happens in your experience once you put alcohol in your body, no matter what you would like it to look like, no matter what the others around you are doing, right? So the happy hour was never a happy hour because I would get more thirsty. I want more. I want more. It's not even something that mentally happens. It's just I get more thirsty. There's an unquenchable thirst that occurs every single time I drink. I overshoot the mark. Every single time I drink. Not sometimes, every single time I drank, I wanted more. And, my story of those 11 years is progressively things got worse. That says everything. I mean, we can riff on that for pages of our personal experience with what that looked like. But, I love Bill's story and the doctor's opinion, how he talks about that. I could breathe when I drank, and it eased the discomfort and dissatisfaction and the anxiousness and that just buzz of disconnection that was always present when I wasn't under the influence of alcohol. Because if I wasn't under the influence of alcohol, I was under the influence of a lower power. And what does my life look like when I'm under the influence of a lower power? I'm restless, irritable, and discontent. I'm never satisfied. I'm impatient. There's a lot of mental activity. There's a lot of mental noise. There's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of opinions. I trust everything that goes through my head. I don't question anything. I can't really be transparent. I'm not really being vulnerable. I don't trust you. I don't trust life. I don't think it has my best interest. I think I have my best interests. I am scared. I'm scared about what's going to happen, what it's going to look like, how I'm going to look like, how you're going to see me, what I'm going to get, what I'm going to lose. And I'm not saying this mentally, but my relationship with life shows this, right? I'm literally walking through life on eggshells. Booze comes in, it's a spiritual experience. I mean, I would drink and I would be the queen of New York City. I would drink and there would be hope. I would, you know what, you guys know what I'm talking about. If you're an alcoholic, you know what I'm talking about. You drink and it's life's good. Yeah, what are we going to do? Yeah. I can do this, I can do that. I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that. This is good, It's just something else takes over. Something else takes over. And I didn't understand. I found over the years the baffling feature of the craving. And we got to talk about the craving. This is what qualifies us. No matter what kind of an alcoholic you are, no matter what's going on, what qualifies us is the allergy. You're not maybe pregnant. You're not maybe an alcoholic. You're either an alcoholic or you're not an alcoholic. You have this chronic progressive fatal illness or you don't have this chronic progressive fatal illness. The experience that I didn't want to see that became very evident at some point is that everyone around me had breaks at some point, even the hard drinkers. Everybody around me, when they fell in love, got married, had a kid, went to college of their choice or something like that, got a job, moved, the brakes went on. They were having successes. I had this success, and it just kept going down. My bottom kept dropping, and I kept normalizing that bottom. One of my mentors says, I would hit a lower bottom and I would furnish it and invite you over. Because I don't want you to show me this is not normal, right? You're losing things. Things are leaving your life, so to speak, the little bit of relationships that I had. And so the physical craving is really important. The doctor's opinion really goes deeply into that. And the only way we see that is in reflection. Step one is reflective. We don't learn step one. We don't the step one in the big book just gives words to the experience that we have already had. That I didn't have the words, but when the words are read, it resonates, because truth resonates deep within us. Truth is truth. It doesn't need anything else. You just feel it. You have that aha, like, yeah, I relate. Yes, that's me. That's what we do here. We give words to these experiences so that we can identify with that powerlessness. And this is what I'm hoping to translate in this talk, is just this experience of powerlessness. We speak the language of powerlessness. We also speak the language of the heart. But for me, what I listen to when I listen to anyone is your powerlessness. That's what connects me to you. Because the people that drank around me were confused and didn't understand. So was I, by the experience I was having with the bottle. And, it's okay to break promises to others, but when I started breaking promises to myself, there was like a question mark, Because, the others, everybody lies, everybody pretends, everybody's a little bit manipulative, you got to protect yourself. This was the mantra of life, right? Especially when I'm in that fear, But, when I would just try to drink like a lady and get a second date with that guy and, only do a happy hour with coworkers so I don't embarrass myself again. When all of those things started failing, that's when there was this baffling feature of alcohol, this inability to leave it alone no matter how great the necessity or the wish. This is what the book tells us. Do I relate to that baffling feature of alcohol? Do I have it in my experience that I promised myself and had every reason not to pick up that night, not to go to the bar that night, and I still did it. So, that's the physical stuff. What happens after I pick up the drink is what happens after I pick up the drink. Eventually, I went from, long weekends and here and there, and excuse it because I'm young, and excuse it because I'm Serbian, and excuse it because I work hard. I literally thought I drank so much because I was Serbian. I met people in AA who had like 20 years sober and went to my hometown and relapsed. Like, we're a drinking culture. You're not to be trusted if you don't drink. You can't be trusted if you don't drink. You gotta hold your liquor. You need to drink. It's a hospitality thing. It's everywhere you go. I grew up in a bar. My dad was a cab driver, and he sat in a bar all day long. I would leave school and I would go through the smoky bar and hang with the peeps in the bar and see Dad and see the bottles in front of him and the glasses in front of him and and then walk out the front and then go to the bus and then go home, and that was a daily thing. It's a drinking culture, and I remember being warned about my dad's alcoholism. I remember my parents married twice and divorced twice. I was supposed to get my dad sober. They married, he started drinking, they divorced, and then they married again and had me, because the new baby was going to make all the difference. And the book tells us no human power relieves us of our alcoholism. The baby didn't have the power, the new job doesn't have the power, the new relationship doesn't have the power that's needed to treat something internal. Nothing on the outside can treat this internal condition in this way. And I remember, I had this vague memory of my mom going, your dad's an alcoholic, and he'll always be an alcoholic, because for 2 years there was no AA in Belgrade, Serbia, where I'm from, when my dad tried getting sober. There was no Alcoholics Anonymous. And he tried to get sober through hospitals and therapy, hospitals and institutions, medications and therapy. And he white-knuckled it for 2 years. And I just think about my dad not having a solution in booze and not having a solution that we find in Alcoholics Anonymous, and being raw to everything he thinks and feels for 2 years. When he picked up that bottle, he never stopped and died from it many years later, But he didn't have a sacred place like ours to walk into, where people can relate and identify and share the good news and explain what is it that he suffers from and how serious this condition is and the disease of that sentence and that you will drink no matter what. As my boyfriend Shannon says, it's a promise. Step one is a promise. You're going to drink. You're going to drink. And the game that I played, relying on my mind, was, but there's something I can do about it. And that's the mental obsession. Mental obsession is like, I can't drink, but there's something I can do about it. Or tomorrow's going to be different. Or I got to get this. Or I got to get that. What's the summary of that? That's control. It's all about control. This whole thing is about control. Lack of power is my dilemma. That is my dilemma. With power, there's no dilemma, but I don't have the power. Mine is limited. I keep failing. So step one is really about successfully failing at all the ways that I try to control and manage my drinking and my life. That's it. Good luck. Have fun. Don't die. You know, it's nuts, right? And you know, like, we laugh now. I like the paragraph that was read because it's so important that the last years of my drinking are not fun. That I experience pain and suffering and discomfort and uncertainty and disappointment and shame and regret and bewilderment and despair and frustration and confusion and despair. What do you think we are like when we really experience that? What do you think we are like when somebody throws us a raft because we're drowning? Do we have the desperation of a drowning man? I will not admit I am powerless unless I realize it to be true. I mean, the step one says we admitted we were powerless. I don't admit anything unless I realize with every fiber of my being that it's true. And the game we play is to be at war with that truth. That's what we do mentally. When I'm disconnected from the depth of my being and I'm relying on my mind, I have a mind that continuously brings me back to that drink, convinces me this time it will be different, convinces me that I will do something about it, that there will be some sudden miracle. The book has this one line I really like. I get stuck on like lines sometimes. Threadbare idea. Threadbare idea. Or threadbare lie. I don't know what it is, but it's a lie. A deception. It's so subtle, right? The mind says, no, now you know what you're doing. You're not drinking whiskey, because I was a whiskey drinker. I don't know, I like whiskey. You're drinking beer, which is like water. The mind is like, you should start doing cocaine. Because you know, you're like a sloppy, fall-down drunk. You're gonna, in New York City alone, you're gonna get raped, stabbed, shot, robbed, cocaine is going to keep you up, keep you alert, keep the booze flowing. Even my use of cocaine was a way to manage my booze, actually. And then those two brought me to my knees, I don't recommend the recipe. Booze can be enough, but, for me, that's my story. I do know that cocaine was a way to manage my, alcohol consumption, because I drank faster than others, longer than others. I wanted it more than others. I wanted to keep going more than others. I wanted the after-hour bars. I wanted to make sure I had it. There was like an obsession always with having it. Bill says, it became a necessity. It was like a necessary component in my life. It was my reprieve. It was my exhale. It was the thing that made living life okay, because sobriety was really the trigger. Consciousness was trigger. I would come to and like the shoe's about to drop. Life is hard. I can't do this. I can't connect. I can't relate. I can't be real. And I want that, right? And then the mind would come in and say, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And when it wouldn't figure it out or that wouldn't work, then the only thing that made me feel like I was in control was to blame you. It's the relationship, it's the childhood, it's the family, it's the landlord, it's the job, it's the boss, it's New York, it's immigration laws, it's it's all of that, right? And then they would call for more drinking, right? Constant uncomfort, drink, comfort, overshoot the mark, come to, wake up, unpredictable, always, with consequences. And then the consequences, early consequences I could explain and justify. Later consequences when I'm an everyday drinker and I'm having alcoholic seizures and I am yellow and gray and, I'm not showering and I'm getting evicted and I have no relationships and everything is shut off and I'm drinking. I'm drinking when I come to from the bottle that has the cigarette butts in it. Get in touch with this. Get in touch with this. Get in touch with this. Get in touch with the powerlessness. I remember Chris many years ago saying, powerless is no power. Not some power sometimes. It's no power. To live that, or to live through that, is devastating. It's a blow to our ego. It weakens the self that thinks it's in control, that keeps wanting to run the show. I was so disconnected from telling the truth because I couldn't, I had no reference point to living life without alcohol. And I couldn't give it up because it was so important. It's the most important in my life. Everything else became secondary. This feeling that I would get produced from drinking, it couldn't be given up without a sufficient substitute. Oh, I'm ready, honey. Oh. Todd knows. To drown in the bottle like that, to really, really not want to drink, to really, really not want to lose family and show up for that wedding or a funeral, pay that bill, and to drink when I don't want to drink. I'm talking for a day or two, guys. Let me just clarify. This was not an experiment in abstinence. The last 2 years of my drinking was trying not to drink for a few days, just to clean up, just to show up. And so 2006 was a really horrific year. I got a warning letter from my job in April. You can't drink on the job. And you can't be sending messengers to buy you airplane, because I didn't understand the craving, right? I would have a liquid lunch, I would come back to work, and then I would want more. And then I would send messengers to get me airplane bottles, and then I would drink at my table. I was an accountant for a multi-million-dollar company. I still did a great job, really, really good job. And, but the consequences of our drinking start showing up more and more and more. And I think, and I'm so grateful for that, because it was the consequences that just were so in my face that you couldn't deny them, right? The dirtiness, the ugliness, the seizures, the loss of job, the disappointed family members, the shut-off utilities, the hygiene, it cannot be I just kept getting cornered, right? I couldn't catch up to my alcoholism. I couldn't catch up. It was like alcoholism was in the front, and I was trying to catch up, to fix it, to manage it, to figure it out, to understand it, to blame someone for it, to move to California. I moved to California and was thrown out of a bar the first night. And the person I was staying, I drank his whole bar and he found me on the floor. That was my effort at geographical cure. It failed in 24 hours of me actually really trying, really thinking that, this is going to be different. And so that last 6 months of my drinking was spent on the floor of my apartment. I lived on the floor and I had a stainless steel table, which was my ashtray. That's where I put out my cigarettes, on a table. And I lived on the floor next to it. And I started going to therapy, and I would lie to him and then drink in the bathroom. He would give me a book about alcoholism, and I would walk out and I would sit at the bar and order drinks by myself and read the book. This is how delusional we are. I mean, I was out to lunch. I was completely out. I lived in the virtual reality of my mind. I was completely disconnected from the neck down. It was whatever the mind said. There was no questioning of the mind. I believed everything it said. It said, go right, I went right, go left, go. He's not good, he's not good. It was never questioned. There was no distance, there was no pause, there was no space, there was no consulting of the heart, of the God, there was no felt sense of depth of my being. There was none of that. And so that failed, and then I ended up in AA in New York City, and I was the drunk girl in the meeting. That's me. I have so much compassion when they come in. Talk about a cry for help. Can't stop drinking, I get that. I had whiskey in my Snapple bottle, sitting in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous in New York City. To sit there was so uncomfortable in one way, but there was something that like maybe there's something here. And I remember an intuitive thought was like, how is sitting here for an hour going to treat me the other 23? And I realized that was actually a good thought. It was actually a true thought. Sitting in a meeting is not going to get me sober. Just sitting in a meeting is not going to get me sober, right? I needed a message that was proportionate to the amount of pain and suffering that I was experiencing inside. That's the depth and weight of Alcoholics Anonymous and the good news it carries. It has to be proportional to the amount of pain. It has to be proportional to the death sentence that I'm given and to my understanding. There's absolutely nothing you can do about this. You will drink, no matter what. And those are the experiences that were had. And September 14, 2006, just another day, I come to, I don't know if it's 4 in the afternoon, 4 in the morning. I look around, at that point I wasn't even leaving the house because I was having seizures and fainting, and I was ordering a lot. You had to order a lot of food in order to get booze, and so the food would be all around the untouched apartment, and so that I could drink. And I actually came to with a cockroach on my nose. That cockroach was like a spiritual awakening. It was like, this is bad, this is it's getting worse and worse, but it's like really bad. Like even the cockroach is like this close, at least before I turn on the light and they just, they disappear, Now they're like here with me, I'm not alone. Those are my friends, besides, terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair, the hideous 4 horsemen. What does hideous 4 horsemen look like? What does that feel like? What's that feel? We got to get in touch with the feeling. What does it feel like in your body? What's the byproduct of feeling that? I'm usually humble. I'm usually willing. Not usually, I am. The byproduct of really recognizing the truth of step 1 experience, in your own experience, is I'll do anything. I'm in trouble. I'm dying. There's no hope for me. I am hopeless. And if you read the doctor's opinion, the doctor has an experience watching the other 2 guys. Right? He has an experience with Bill, but he has an experience with the other 2 guys. He gives examples at the end of doctor's opinion. And each one of them have one thing in common. They both, before they got sober, said, there's no hope for me. I'm absolutely defeated. Bill talks about it. He has these realizations. Horror and hopelessness of the next morning are unforgettable. The courage to do battle was not there. The efforting to try and control and manage this was just not there. Because I kept failing at all of the ways that I tried to manage and control it. And tell myself that I had a choice, and this is a reasonable choice, that I'm choosing this. Yeah? And to be absolutely defeated for me happened on September 14, 2006. I was under the influence of alcohol. I needed more. I found 99 pennies in the house. I went to the bodega. I bought a 99-cent can. And I had an experience with the guy looking at me like he had this look of pity and sorrow. And I saw it. Like I saw it. He translated. We transmit the message with our being. The words are not important. I am a wordsmith. I like words, but I'd rather translate my gratitude to you, or this experience of powerlessness to you in your felt sense than what I'm saying, right? And so this bodega guy of my local bodega, that I always thought they were all bums, and all the bums hung there because it was right next to the project. The way he looked at me was like I was a bigger bum than them. And I saw that. I saw how dark it is before the dawn. Bill talks about in his story how dark it is before the dawn. It was a very, very dark, dark period. And that wasn't enough. And I knocked on my neighbor's door, and I knew that he had some booze, and I begged him for booze. And he gave me a little bit, and that wasn't enough. And I lay on the floor of my apartment, and I tried therapy. In my eyes, I tried AA, but it was kind of bizarre, and I was under the influence, and I was sitting in the back, and I ran away, and all of my efforts at managing and controlling my drinking has failed, and my mind came up with the final solution. And the book says, many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. The supreme sacrifice. My solution, the best that my mind can come up with, this is how limited the mind is to end my life. And it's so funny, it's like I can't be in control, then that. That's what the mind does. I can't be in control so that it doesn't live in the realm of possibility. Right? It doesn't live in the realm of it. If I am so insecure, the ego is so insecure, it's like if I'm not in control, then I'd rather die. And I love Shannon. He says, I would have killed the wrong guy. And this is a common thread for a lot of us when we hit that bottom, right? But that place that is no longer like, where we're just so tired of failing. And I had bullets, but I didn't have a gun. But I knew a gun dealer that was in my house at some point in the past. I meant business. That's not important. I meant it. That was it. There's nothing, every door is closed. I'm absolutely cornered. I'm hopelessly defeated. There's absolutely no hope. On that floor, I said, I can't stop drinking. I can't stop drinking, period. It wasn't like I can't stop drinking with like a reservation or a plan for the future. It was like the little me went away and presence showed up. Presence was always there. The truth was always there. But I was so wrapped up in the mental noise. I was so living in a different reality that I couldn't really see. So when that quieted down, it was like the universe came in and harmonized. Grace swoops in, shows itself, presents itself when we're not in the way. It was just a moment of truth. Truth is so powerful, it resonates. I mean, we have quotes about it, guys. See the truth because it will set you free. But what does that look like in your experience? The truth in that moment set me free. Because I was a girl that was about to take her life under the influence of alcohol. I admit it. Because I realized the truth of it up until that point, painfully. that there's absolutely nothing I can do, and I will drink. I can't stop drinking. I can't stop drinking, period. It was like almost being resigned to that fact in a somber way. And I love Bill's words on his conclusion of step 1. No words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in the bitter morass of self-pity, quicksand stretched all around me. I've met my match. Alcohol was my master. Right? I was overwhelmed. There was no more fight left in me. There was no more courage to do battle, to try, to effort, to manage, to control. I was checkmated. I was cornered. I lost. There was nothing I could do about it. And I understood that even despite my greatest desire, wish, and reason to not pick up a drink, I will pick up a drink. That's the promise of step 1. We're absolutely screwed. We're doomed to an alcoholic death. You have a death sentence, and you are sure to die. This thing wants you dead. I need to get with that. I really need to have that experience, because it usually doesn't look like coming into AA and going, my name is Nikoleta, I'm an alcoholic. How do I look? I was depressed. I was grieving. I knew I could never, ever take a drink again, and that I was going to, and it's around the corner. That was the state of being. I saw one of my mentors, Barefoot Bill, last week. We were at a workshop. The guy, it was the first person to take me through the big book, word by word. The very first person. He met me when I was new. He was telling Shannon, he said, oh yeah, I met her. She was gray, yellow, scared, the deer in headlights, like this. I was just like completely like, I was living that sentence with this hope of being surrounded by people who had some like magical answer to how they're not dead yet or drunk, you know. But I had no reference point. I really had no reference point. And from that place, there was, so September 14, 2006, something really, really deep and profound happened. I've been trying to honor it for 19 years. I still feel it in the depth of my being. It's the cement, it's the base that this house I live in has been built on. I wasn't of my own doing. It was really a gift. I think grace is an undeserved gift. You know, there's being surrendered. The self got out of the way. It got so weakened that there was just a letting go, and there was like a pause. There was like literally a manipulated pause. No, I always talk about it, even though I don't have words for it. It just sounds so insane. It's just a 4th-dimensional experience. It wasn't a 3-dimensional experience. So there's really no words that can really encapsulate on the floor, you know, admitting defeat, realizing, giving up, and then experiencing this manipulated pause. And it felt like eternal. It felt like forever. And I knew it was short, but it felt like forever. There was just a recognition. And then an intuitive thought came up to ask my sister for help, who was trying to help me for 2 years. At that point, I didn't know that her and my mom and some friends were planning an intervention, because I disconnected myself from everyone in my life. And I was experiencing that loneliness and aloneness that only an alcoholic knows. I was literally drowning in the bottle. How dark it is before the dawn. I went back to that neighbor and asked for a quarter. And I went to a New York City payphone and called my sister until she picked up the phone, making sure I don't lose that quarter. And I asked for help. And it didn't matter where it was, how long it was, what state it was in, what's going to come out of my apartment. Nothing mattered. Nothing. There was no plans. There was a complete sense of neutrality. There was no opinions, no preferences. This is what it looks like to be surrendered. No opinion. Completely surrendered state. All is okay. I'm dying anyway. Like, help me. Help me. I can't do this anymore. But nothing matters. There were no preferences. And I ended up in a treatment center in Pennsylvania. Sorry. Had a good experience. And they were like, why are you here? And I'm like, I don't want to die. And they handed me the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and told me to read it. And then put me in a detox bed. And I couldn't sleep. And I couldn't sleep for a year. And I read words I didn't understand. I remember reading a title of a chapter that said, there is a solution. And it didn't matter that I didn't understand it. But the title caught me. There's the tiniest little hope in the title. There's a chapter called There is a Solution. I want to, repeat that again. To be dying in alcoholic debt. So my step one is reflective. This book gave the words, you guys gave the words over the years, But, the experience for all the alcoholics is always the same, right? It was an irreversible condition. I was legless. I was a woman who lost her legs. I was bodily and mentally different. I remember calling my mom and my sister saying, what happens when you drink? It was a totally different experience than mine. I get buzzed, I get nauseous, and I get sleepy. Because there was still some part of me that's like, let me just understand this more clearly. I have the experience, but I don't have the words. So let me just compare it to somebody around me, I just remember this feeling of neutrality. I felt safe and protected and carried. And I went into this treatment center and I didn't understand anything you guys were talking about. But that step one experience really carried me. Like something else swooped in and carried me. And because I didn't really experience a solution yet, and I didn't understand the solution, I understood one thing, and that's I can't trust my mind. I knew that. That's all I knew. I can't see things the way they are. I can't trust my mind. And I was so sure that I was going to drink, and it was around the corner, even though there was no obsession present really, or plan, that I decided to lock myself in treatment for 4 months. As long as they would have me. I begged them, please don't let me out. I can't be a free-range alcoholic. I'm going to drink. Literally. My second solution, so my first solution to my alcoholic problem was to end my life. My second solution was to be institutionalized and locked down. And told what to do and be locked up. And I felt more safe locked up than without a solution that was offered in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's where I really got exposed to AA. And that's where I really started experiencing, you guys know something that I don't know, And, it's funny enough, you talked about God, and there was nothing in me that could hold on to that. And yet there was everything in me that was willing to hold on to that without any personal experience necessarily with it or sense of it, I was willing to hold on to anything. I think that's the desperation of a drowning person. I think that if I have a problem with any other step that we're going to hear about today with people I adore and love and that inspire me, and this lineup is unbelievable. Is that my time? Okay. I have a problem with step one. It wasn't really fully experienced. I think the whole thing, and it's so funny, I have 19 years sober. The wisdom of step one is that I'm still falling down to step one constantly. It's just that booze was a tangible experience. It was the first tangible experience with the wisdom and the truth of life. I actually don't have power. I'm not in control. Life is unpredictable. I don't trust. There is maybe a better way. There is a sufficient substitute for that sense of presence and that pause that I would get from that drink. Because the drink would bring me into the here and now with an okayness, with a yes to life. Right? All the other times, I would be somewhere else and not here. Right? I was in the virtual reality of my mind. And I wanted to get out of here. I always wanted to get out of here, be somewhere else, be someone else, And so I locked myself up for 4 months and still was being carried by that step one experience. Byproduct of that experience of powerlessness, I had willingness I didn't understand. There was a yes to the bizarre suggestions that I was being given to read a book that I don't understand, that sounds like a fairy tale. You will be rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence. We were reborn, sunlight of the spirit, I was just like, who talks like this? This is so bizarre. I sat in the meetings and people were like bizarrely honest, talking about really personal things, having an incredible amount of faith that things would work out. And I just sat and listened, and I just sat and listened. I sat in the front row because my life depended on it. Everything I did in early recovery, everything I do to this day is because my life depends on it. My literal life depends on it. Something in me wanted to live. And I'm the luckiest girl in the world because when they would no longer respond to me begging them to let me stay in treatment, and they're like, you gotta go. And, which is, I always say, if you want to leave a treatment center, just tell them you want to stay. Because they seem to really think that you're ready to leave. I chose a sober house in New Jersey to start rebuilding my life. And I showed up there, and 2 days later, I met my mentors, my sponsor, and a mentor of mine, my mom and dad of AA, Lena and Barefoot Bill. And Lena's still my sponsor to this day. And, she carried the message to me in that moment of meeting her the same way that Eddie carried the message to Bill. Bill is sitting at his kitchen table. He's drinking. He's hoping he gets Abby to drink with him. Abby is fresh-skinned and glowing. Abby is sitting there neutrally carrying a message with his presence that another way is possible. He shares to Bill of that religion. Bill's mind snaps shut. Oh, what a nutcase. But he cannot deny that Abby's sober. He can't deny. A miracle sat right in front of him. So I sat in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and miracles sat in front of me. And people were saying that they were 10 years sober and 15 years sober and 20 years sober. And some of them are, smoking pot, doing something, But, people with 6 months, 90 days, heroes. Heroes. Wow. Because even though I had 4 months when I came out of treatment, I was locked down in the mountains of Pennsylvania. I mean, you couldn't do much. So I come into this sober living and I see people with 90 days sober and they're free range alcoholics and I'm like, wow. And I meet Lena and she's like, I'm going to take you through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm going to take you through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and I only ask you to pay it forward. I've been doing that to this day. I'm a product of good sponsorship in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm a product of kindness of strangers in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm a product of somebody that carried the message that saved my life and gave me a life and deepened my life. I'm a product of someone that carried the message of depth and weight to me because the depth and weight of the pain I was experiencing, it needed to be proportional to that. He needed to treat the deep inner conflict and inner turmoil and inability to connect to life and inability to form deep and meaningful relationships, inability to really be honest and vulnerable and show up and trust that I was suffering from, that fueled my need to be in control. And the most tangible experience of me wanting to be in control when I'm absolutely not in control was found in the bottle. And I just happened to have a physical craving, that when I drink I get more thirsty. And my experience abundantly confirms that. And I need to reflect on my experience and get in touch with the powerlessness that I've experienced over and over and over and over again of wanting to drink like a lady and have a happy hour and not drink on a Tuesday or on Wednesday, and failing at that. And I need to take a look at all the promises I made myself in the later years of drinking for many really, really, really good reasons. Of not picking up a drink and experience powerlessness when the booze is not in me. That's the beauty of the powerlessness, is that I'm powerless when I pick up, and I'm off to the races. Anything can happen. It's unpredictable, and some of it is funny and tragic, or I just don't even know what happened. I'm in a blackout or a brownout. There's no I'm gone. Right? The alcoholic is driving. But the powerlessness before I pick up a drink, that's what I've come into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. What is the mental state that precedes the drink? What is the mental state that precedes relapse? What's the mental state that precedes cheating? What's the mental state that precedes skimming off the top? What's the mental state that precedes lying? That's the mental obsession is not this drink. The mental obsession is, this is not good. I got to do something about it. I'm somehow in control. I'll plan something out. I'll figure it out. I need it. I want it. I should have it. I'll blame it on somebody. I'll do this tomorrow. It's plans for the future. It's I can do something about it. And that's the element of control that's what I suffer from. That I'm not in control. I don't have control. And I'll tell you, that has deepened over the years. That has really deepened over the years. Alcoholism is my spiritual path. Nothing else was going to bring me to this. Nothing else was going to open me up like this. And it was unbelievable. My whole life, I don't even know how to express the gratitude I have for what happened. Do you understand something that happened 19 years ago in a split second is still carrying me? That's enough. And yet I've had millions of incredibly beautiful experiences after walking into Alcoholics Anonymous, and realizations and step work and moments with God and inspirations and friendships and love and all. And yet that split second on the floor of my apartment, pissing my pants, living in my shit, unshowered, smelly, broken, that still carries me. That still is felt inside of me. And branches of that have been evident in my journey in Alcoholics Anonymous in terms of powerlessness. I keep falling down to step one. I keep falling down to step one. I see the wisdom of it. Because what happens when we know that to be true? When we realize the truth of that and then we admit it. We're willing and open and humble and willing to step into the unknown and to hear and to listen and to be here. Yay! Oh, yes. It's over. Yes, I can enjoy now. Thank you.